You're listening to Making a Living Show. I'm Roby Levy.
Hi, my name is Karyn Balser, and I make Mandala-inspired mugs and custom artwork for a living.
While walking with her daughter during the 1 week of the year that Winnipeggers refer to as summer, Karyn Balser was intrigued by kindness rocks decorated with intricate dotted mandala patterns. She was immediately inspired to start making her own and has since gone on to create custom dot mandala mugs and art under the name Peg Dots. Here's my chat with Karyn Balser. Who are you and what do you make for a living?
My name is Karyn Balser, and my business is Peg Dots. I make dot mandala artwork, primarily on coffee mugs and canvases, but I also do, especially this time of year, a lot of ornaments and custom work.
Okay, so what's dot mandala art?
Mandalas are a kind of a geometric art form. There's a lot of symmetry, and the dot mandala form is just what it sounds like. It's dots, so it kind of looks more like a spider web. In certain instances, you start from the middle and kind of work your way out in symmetry.
And where does this originate from?
I think there's a lot of different cultures that is kind of adapted it. I believe a lot of like Hindu and Buddhism, Sanskrit. It has different meanings and symbolism depending on which culture you're kind of looking at.
And how did you come across these things and start applying them?
Well, I started actually painting. Maybe it was about 3 years ago. My oldest daughter and I, she was, I think, 9 at the time. We started doing. We found a local version of the kindness rocks movement. So people paint rocks with whatever little doodles and hide them around the city. And people, when you're out for a walk, you find them and post online that you found them and that kind of thing. And so we started doing that, and it kind of right around that time it really took off in Winnipeg. It became a big thing. Like you couldn't pretty much go for a walk anywhere in the city and find these. So we started doing that, and it was really fun. It was a good way to bond and spend time together and get outside, and an excuse to go for a walk and that kind of thing. And I really just liked painting. I found that it was a really good stress relief. It was kind of relaxing, and I didn't think that was the thing for me because I'm not really very artistic. Like I can't draw. I can't. Any of my artwork previously was just stick people and little stick dogs and stick cats. So it was good to find something that I enjoyed doing, and we started doing it more and more, and it became, yeah, like I said, like a good stress relief, a good relaxing. It was a fairly stressful point in my life later that year, so I started doing it more, and I was getting kind of tired of the doodles and stick people I was drawing, and I'd found a couple of mandala rocks. Like I just saw these designs, and I thought, these are really interesting. I'm kind of drawn to them. So I kind of taught myself to do it. Did some videos, and I'm like, I wonder if I can do this. And I found that I really liked it, and I found that I was, I can only draw stick people, but patterns and shapes I'm fairly decent at. So it was just something I picked up and started doing, and I really enjoyed it.
And were you doing them initially on rocks as well, or did you?
Yeah, I started on rocks. We'd go to the beaches and, pick any sort of, nice flat rock we could find and bring them home. And then, yeah, it just kind of expanded. In the wintertime, you don't go out here in Winnipeg, at least. I'm not a fan of the winter here. So you're not really out hunting for rocks when it's 40 below. So I was looking for other things, and I started doing some like canvas and magnets and stuff. And I just started to kind of take over the house. So I figured I should see if maybe I can do something with these.
So early on, when you started out, were you doing traditional mandala designs, or were you doing your own take right out of the gates?
Well, it's kind of, I think everything is kind of your own take. Like it isn't like there's a specific pattern that this is this version and you make it exactly like this. It's more just an overall style. So it's kind of, you can really, I've kind of, found I have a few different setups and styles that I kind of work with more often, but they always end up different anyways. It's just kind of, you really just start with some dots and see where they take you.
See, to my untrained eye, even looking at some of them just online, seeing some mandala pictures, it's kind of, it's bringing images back of, do you remember spirograph when you were a
Hmm.
kid? That's what it sort of looks like. It sort of
Yeah,
starts in the
yeah,
beginning, in the
exactly.
middle, and sort of keeps turning and turning on itself. Obviously, these are far more intricate and a lot more purposeful in their designs than a spirograph.
No,
But
that's a great way to explain it too. It is kind of like the old, it's very, yeah, you start and then it spirals out and they all kind of overlap and yeah, it is beautiful, I think.
tell me then, how did you go from, sitting in your house, 40 below, painting some rocks you found with a bunch of dots on them, to the next step, to A, getting better at actually doing the painting, and B, taking it to a more professional place where you started doing it on actual mugs and magnets and things for sale?
Well, getting better is just practice. Like you just, just keep doing it. I spent a lot of time just, playing with stuff and just doing it over and over again and, little rocks and I'd paint over them and do them again or if I ran out and that kind of thing. And selling them, it just kind of started out as you know, I can't keep everything I'm making. I still like making all these things. Let's see if there's any interest in them. And I started getting people requesting like, oh, can you do something on this mug for me? Or I'm looking for a gift for, I just want like a little magnet I can mail or stuff like that. So it just kind of grew from there, really out of a lack of space in my house for keeping everything.
And I assume people, like you were giving them away as gifts, anniversaries, maybe the odd
Yeah,
birthday,
yeah, I
something like
did a
that.
lot of gifts, and then yeah, and people, I did my first craft. So I thought, well, let's just see, we'll see what happens, and made a few things and sold a few things, and then I started getting orders kind of online, get my name out and friends, and yeah, it kind of grew organically a bit at the beginning.
But you said you were taking online orders. You had a website built, or you put something together?
No, it was more just off like Facebook and that kind of thing. Like someone would contact me, like, "Oh, I saw you at X place," or that kind of thing.
Where are you getting the ideas for these? Are they coming from other people asking? I know you do some custom work. So, I mean, is that where you're getting sort of general ideas for what you're going to make and what you're going to make it on?
Yeah, a lot of the time. I mean, custom pieces, they tend to range. There's either someone has a very specific idea of what they're looking for, or just kind of, I would want something in blue and purple. Go with it, like so. I've had very specific requests. Like I had someone I painted. A guinea pig outline on their canvas and then filled it with the mandala of the outline itself. So they had a very specific like vision of what they wanted it to look like. And then I've also I did like a piece for a family, kind of like a family tree thing where I did each color. It was 6 or 7 colors, and each color matched a birthstone of someone in their family. So they wanted that to kind of represent that for custom work. And then sometimes I started a new line of mugs, a specific line of mugs, just this past summer, and I called it the Heritage series. And I wanted to do something that kind of was a bit more personal and kind of represented parts of my life. So there's 6 different mugs, and each one of them is inspired by a place, a location in Manitoba that has been important in my life. And so some of them I found the mug first. Some of them I kind of had the idea first. There's one of them, the Cloverdale mug is actually it's looks like a little like milk jug, and as soon as I saw this one, I knew that I was going to be about farm life. My grandparents had a farm growing up, and I spent a lot of time out on the farm. So this mug just screamed farm to me. So, I did colors that reminded me of that red barn, the yellow wheat fields, blue sky, the green grass, that kind of thing. And it just went from there.
I mean, you do a lot of mugs, and you do a lot of magnets, and you do a lot of ornaments. Do you ever look at one of these and just go, I don't have a clue. I don't. If I do one more of these, I have nothing new is coming to mind. Do you ever hit an absolute creative block looking at the same canvas, like a painter might sometimes?
Yeah, I think sometimes, I think those are the times when I think everybody does. You kind of look at something and like, even something that you love to do, you kind of just like, okay, I can't do this anymore today right now. Or, just today I'm just not feeling it. I think in those times, it's kind of good to have the business side of it, because those are the days where I'm like, okay, I need to go, I'm going to work on the website, or I'm going to do all the boring administrative stuff that I don't like doing, but I can't think of, I'm not being creative right now anyway. So get that side of it done. And then you spend a couple days doing that, and then you start to really hate the computer and, and want to go back to the paint.
So with this, the Heritage series, was this the first time you were trying to do a set of pieces that had story behind them, had meaning behind them?
Yeah, this was the first time that I did something that was a series and actually, kind of based on something. I do like doing, all the mugs previously had been completely one of a kind. They were all different colors, like no two really looked alike unless I made them coordinate. But to be honest, from a marketing standpoint too, that's really hard to sustain on a website platform, because I take all my own pictures and I do all my own listings, and it's just me for everything. So to take a new picture and a new listing for every single mug, it's a lot more work. So it was kind of twofold. I wanted to have something that had a bit more meaning, and I also wanted to make my life slightly easier and be able to promote something that was easier for people to obtain, because I would put up a piece and be like, oh, someone would say, I really like this mug, can you do it again? And I'm like, well, I can't, because I don't have another one of those particular shapes, or this was only a vintage find that I found that I can't get anywhere else. So this way I was able to come up with something that was unique but still could be shared with more than one person.
Right. To me, it sounds like you're effectively making like a fashion designer has a fall line,
Right.
and
Yeah.
there's a certain theme maybe that ties all the pieces together. It's something that is new but replicable.
Yes.
And therefore, to a certain extent, streamlinable as well. Because I was going to ask you, why handmade? Does handmade work for you, or does handmade become a bottleneck for you?
Right now it's working for where I'm at right now. And again, like you said, with the streamline, that was part of the thing too, is now I can sit down and I can do four mugs in a set a lot quicker than if each one has different colors and different styles. So I enjoy, that's my favorite part of it, is actually making them. So I can't really see a time where I would be getting anyone else to do it for me. Eventually it is going to, it's not really super scalable that way. Eventually I'll be able to, I'm hoping, if it grows, I can get someone to do photography and accounting and, the website work, and that takes up just as much of my time too. So that'll be where, if anything, if I'm able to hire out, as it were, that'll be what it's for.
Right. That makes a lot of sense, and leads me actually to questions about your organization. As you've said, it's basically you. You're making the product, you're designing the product, you're producing the product, shipping the product and everything, but you're also doing the business side.
Yes.
And that, of course, takes away from how much you're able to produce. Theoretically, in terms of it may take away from your ability to grow the business if you did want to scale.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely, the behind the scenes, I don't know that people necessarily realize when they see a product being made, or they see, any small business, they see the end result, but I don't know if people necessarily realize everything that goes in behind the scenes that you don't see. That, the website where you're up all night because, the website crashed and you're trying to update this and the update isn't working. And this is all these things to try to get your launch successfully out. There's a lot of behind the scenes ties that need strings that need pulling. So, yeah, it's a lot. It would be good. That is kind of my goal one day, is to be able to outsource a bit of that so I can spend more time doing the actual creating.
Which is the enjoyable part.
Exactly.
That holds true and is very much in line with other makers I've spoken to. In fact, I spoke to a potter in an earlier episode who was explaining to me how to make a mug.
Mm-hmm.
Mugs are actually a lot more work than you think they are. And that's why they're more expensive than you think they should be.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, I guess, are used to $5 IKEA mugs, but those are literally just poured in and mass produced.
Yeah.
So when you're actually making something by hand properly, and when you're actually decorating something by hand properly, the cost of having a real human person doing it is in the cost of the mug, but it's also what makes it special.
Yeah, it's like even as much as you can produce something in a series, they're all going to be just slightly different, and they're gonna, they just have that extra bit of love in them.
Yeah, gives them personality. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of all of these things, I mean, I assume doing everything yourself is, of course, a challenge in and of itself. But within there, what is the most challenging part? What's the toughest challenge you face in terms of running your business?
It's probably just, the standard answer of just finding the balance between how much time do I need to spend towards marketing versus actually making the product. If you have great marketing, but you don't have enough product to back that up, or vice versa, you have all this product, but you can't sell it because you don't have any marketing. Just finding a balance between how do I spend my time most effectively right now and most enjoyably too, because you still want to be able to enjoy what you're doing. That's why you go into business for yourself, is because theoretically you enjoy what you're doing, in theory.
And let's assume more often than not.
You would hope so, yes.
In terms of the marketing, what has been particularly successful for you?
I think with pretty much any business these days, it's social media. You hear that a lot, and it's definitely social media is a great tool. It can be a finicky tool. You kind of have to. It takes a lot of I spend a lot of time researching and that kind of thing too, the most effective way to reach your audience, but it can definitely be effective, and it's a great way to build a personal connection with your audience too, because you're not just talking, you're not just a website or just an Etsy is great for being able to expose you to a worldwide audience that you might not necessarily have access to, but it definitely lacks that personal and personality. So social media is a great way to really have your personality come out. You can, be as professional, if you like, as you will, or as casual and friendly, depending on what your brand is, really. And it allows your personality to shine through. And I think when you're buying from a small business all the time, you're buying from the person behind it, not necessarily just the product. So social media is a great way. Instagram's probably the best for that, and Facebook.
Yeah. What sort of content have you posted that has resonated most with your audience?
Well, I actually, one thing I like to do that I've been trying to do more of is videos of the actual painting, and I do time lapse because nobody wants to sit and watch half an hour of of dots. But time lapse videos, I find them fascinating. I find them interesting. Like with speaking of your potter before, pottery, I could watch someone playing with the clay all day. Like, it's just endlessly soothing to me. So I do that with the dots and the time lapse of the painting, and sometimes seeing how something comes together like that is really interesting, and it gives a little bit of a behind the scenes, and people seem to enjoy seeing that as well. So I'm trying to do more of those.
Well, I can definitely say those are incredibly interesting and engaging, because that's actually how I found you. I was sort of, I was flipping through Instagram, and all of a sudden I see this time lapse of you doing dots. I'm pretty sure it was on a mug, and and I just sat there and watched it. It was maybe a couple of minutes, and obviously it was more like a half hour, 40 minutes or something like that, compressed down, and it was excellent. And I just kept laughing because your caption, if I'm not mistaken, I seem to recall it was something like, just when you thought I couldn't get in more dots.
Oh.
And then you got in more dots. And it was just I was like, oh my God, she's getting more dots in there. How is it happening? How is she seeing the opportunity to get more dots? And I was riveted. So I was like, okay. And I followed you, and that's how I found you to get you on the show. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
well, that's great to hear.
time-lapse
So
videos are great. There
that's
you go.
awesome. No, I love hearing that. Like, people contact me, they're like, I can, I could watch this all day. And that's great because I'm the same way. That's how I, kind of started doing it too, is I would find these accounts who did a lot of these kind of videos and I could just sit there and watch them. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's soothing. There's something about it.
Well, yeah, and it's a real lesson as well for other makers and other artists, just to know that. And again, take this with a grain of salt. A lot of people may say, "Well, how am I going to do social media about mugs?" I mean, and somebody who's thinking in a very limited way may not really think that there's something truly interesting for a viewer or someone else out there, or they may not have a story to tell about, let's say, a mug, a magnet, an ornament, or something like that. But
Hmm.
you got to try different things and
Yeah.
see what hits with an audience.
Yeah.
And once you find it, do more of it.
Yeah. And I think it's just important to just be you in it too. Don't try to have a voice that isn't really yours because you're it's not going to work. You'll lose it eventually. You'll lose the facade eventually, and just be yourself.
Have you found instances where you sort of tried to be, let's say, super professional or sort of
Are you
pose
saying
as
I'm
something very
not super professional?
no, but you're
Yeah.
you're very personable, and so have you taken a step to the left of personable and sort of been professional, like I am, a company here, and what was the response to that?
Well, I think maybe starting out, I was kind of like that. It just because it was just, this was my business and this is what I do. But I don't think it lasted very long because I'm not great at, not that I'm not good at professionalism. That doesn't sound right. But on social media, I feel is a much more informal setting. So and I didn't really want to spend all my time doing something where I wasn't being me. I wasn't. There's debate on whether you should talk about your kids or your family or your personal life or just stick to this is the business and this is what I'm going to talk about. But that would be kind of boring, I think, in my opinion. The people that I'm drawn to are the ones where you feel like you kind of know them a little bit. Even though you might not have met them, but you kind of know, like, what's going on in their life as well. So I mean, I'm not going to tell you, that I had oatmeal for breakfast every day, but I might give you I just, talk about things that are happening with the kids and with the family as well. That's kind of, I tend to do that more in stories than on the actual feed, so that if you want to come to the Instagram feed and just see pretty pictures, you can do that too. But if you want to, get a little more of the person behind it too, then I'll do that in stories.
And are you finding you're producing different content for different platforms, or are you primarily just making one thing, putting it out into all of the different channels?
Well, I'm primarily only doing Facebook and Instagram right now. I do put a lot of the same things on both, just because it's a different audience, I think, for both too. Instagram, I think, tends to be a younger audience, and I could go even younger onto TikTok or something, but I haven't. That's my daughter's thing. I haven't. I feel
Got to
like
get
an
your
old lady.
dancing shoes on there.
Yeah, I feel like an old lady. I haven't got into TikTok yet, but um, the different both platforms have different audiences, I think. So it's been all right just having the same type of contact. I try to have different smaller micro audiences within them, like on the Instagram stories is not as many people will be watching that as they will on the feed. And in Facebook, I have a separate private group that will do the same kind of thing. Like, I'll have more of the videos there and just more feedback. Like, hey, think I'm releasing these ornaments this year. What do you guys think? What would you call it? That kind of thing. Just in the smaller micro groups.
Do you ask your audience a lot of questions? Do you get input and then actually put it into practice?
I do. I think it's a great way to get feedback from your audience, and also to bring them into the mix more too. Because if you have something, you're like, hey, I suggested that you should do cat ornaments, and now they're there or whatnot. And it's a good way to gauge where your audience is at. And obviously, you can't do everything that they suggest, because I think every maker has had you should make this, and we always go, yep, and who's gonna buy it? So you can't do everything for everyone, but it's definitely a good idea. Like, if I had a lot of people suggesting that they would like to see this particular style of ornament next year, then I could take that into mind and see what I could do.
Right. So is it actually, at times, it can help you even figure out who you're making for?
Right. If I start, having dozens of people are suggesting this to me or something, then, well, hey, maybe it's, maybe that is something. Maybe it's just me that wouldn't be interested in it or something like that. But
Right. May open up a different avenue. Perhaps.
yeah, exactly. And you never know, like, there'll be some things that I think will be, really, really popular and I really enjoy it. And I think this is going to be great. And it flops. Or the other way around. I'll have something, I'll just make a one off a quick, like, I'll just throw this out and see what happens. And it ends up being really popular. So you never know.
And in terms of people contributing, does your family contribute to it? Are they part of the business?
Not so much. They definitely help a lot behind the scenes. Like my husband, when I was doing craft shows, when that was actually more of a thing, before the year, pre this year, he would, he obviously watched the kids, or my mom, sorry, would watch the kids for me a lot when I'm doing that kind of thing. This year I did have some markets that I was going to be double booked at. So he was going to do a booth for me at one and I would be at the other one. That's not happening, but maybe that will happen again one day. So that kind of thing. But as for the actual making or the marketing, the shipping, anything like that, that's all me.
And how are you balancing that? I mean, you have a full family life, you have this creative endeavor, and you have the entire business to run. How do you decide what's going to take priority?
I have certain times during the day where I can do certain things, and that's just kind of got to be when it's at. And my youngest is in kindergarten half days every day now. So I have about 2 hours in the morning by the time I get her there and bring her back. So I have that 2 hours where I, if I need to run and get supplies or, actually have time to sit down and paint or work on the computer, I have those 2 hours. I'll pick her up and then we'll do, household stuff and family stuff in the afternoon. And then in the evening when she goes to bed, then I have a couple more hours to do it that way. So it's kind of just broken up into bits and just wherever we can. Sometimes on the weekend, my husband will get a day off. So he might, look after her more while I'm painting for a few hours, stuff like that. It's pretty much just here and there, wherever I can squeeze it in.
Do you find it hard to summon the inspiration at those exact moments, at that 2 hours when you've got the time?
Sometimes, but I find I also kind of look forward to it a little bit because especially when I'm going to paint, I can throw on a Netflix show in the background or listen to a podcast or something. And that's kind of also my time that I can just kind of relax and do. So I definitely look forward to those. It is more hard to summon the energy to do, the taxes at the end of the year or or any of that fun stuff. But the creative side of it, no, I'm usually pretty excited to go do it.
So what sort of advice might you give to somebody who wants to get into the mug game, into the mandala art game?
I think no matter what you want to do, there's a market for everyone, I think, and for everything. So even if you think, you want to make some, say, jewelry, something that's traditionally fairly saturated market, you're making them yourself. So there's something different in the way you're making it just because it's you making it. You're not going to make it exactly the same as anyone else. So I think don't be discouraged by what's out there already and just kind of look at what you're going to bring to the table.
That's an incredibly good lesson, honestly, because as somebody that's made films, podcasts, music, writing, photography, and everything else, I've dabbled in a lot of different stuff. And I've found I've talked myself out of going further because I've seen somebody who's A, already there, or B, there and just doing such amazing work that
killing it. Yeah.
I'm horrified putting my stuff next to theirs.
Oh, for sure. And I'm definitely not saying that I've mastered this lesson, but that's something you kind of aim for. Because, it's always hard we compare ourselves all the time. Like, why would I even bother applying to, this market when the talent there is already astounding? Or, like, make a film when, there's already been masterpieces. Why do I need to try? It's definitely, we're our own worst critics, right? So it's hard to fight that.
So where can people find out more about you?
The website is probably the best place to start, pegdots.com, pegdots.com. Everything is there. You can shop from there. They have, I run a Meet the Maker series. It was a blog series. Those are all still on there. And I do a live Instagram series as well. So you can find me on Instagram. And Facebook at Peg Dots. And that's probably the best places to start.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing how you make a living.
Thanks for having me.
Subscribe to Making a Living Show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and pretty much anywhere else you get your podcasts. For more on the show, visit makingalivingshow.com or follow along on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Making a Living 1. Making a Living Show is produced by Next Exit Media and hosted by me, Roby Levy. Thanks for listening.